Let's talk about something that almost no one wants to admit out loud. Envy. That sinking feeling when you see a friend thriving while you feel stuck. You know, like when someone you started out with gets promoted or finds love, and even though you smile and say, "I'm so happy for you," deep down you're thinking, "Why not me?" I've felt it too. It's uncomfortable, it's embarrassing, and it's so common. Here's what I've learned. Feeling envy doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you're human. We're taught to think envy is a toxic emotion, and sure, if left unchecked, it can really mess with your mood and your mindset. But the feeling itself, it's just information. It tells you something about what you care about, what you feel you're missing, or where you're feeling insecure. The key is recognizing it early and knowing what to do next. Let's start by naming it. Envy shows up in all kinds of sneaky ways. Maybe you see someone share a life update on social media, like they bought a house or just got back from an amazing trip, and instead of being inspired, you feel annoyed. You might tell yourself, "It's just luck," or you roll your eyes and say, "Must be nice." That's envy creeping in. Sometimes it even hides behind what feels like fairness. You might think, "We worked equally hard, so why are they ahead and I'm not?" That feeling of injustice? Also envy. Another common sign is the double-layered response. You send your friend a congratulatory message, but inside you're not celebrating with them. Instead, you're questioning everything about your own path. What am I doing wrong? Why hasn't that happened for me? That inner conflict can feel really lonely, but it's something so many of us go through. And sometimes, envy takes a more toxic turn. We start gossiping, criticizing, or trying to minimize someone else's success. You might hear yourself saying things like, "She only got that because she's lucky," or "He's not even that talented." It's an attempt to bring someone back down to your level so you don't feel so far behind. It's natural, but it's not healthy. Over time, that mindset builds resentment, not just toward others, but toward yourself. The important thing is this: don't shame yourself for feeling this way. Seriously, don't beat yourself up for being human. We all feel envy. It's built into us through years of comparison, competition, and social expectations. The trick isn't to pretend it's not there. It's to look at it honestly and ask, what is this trying to tell me? In the next part, we'll explore where this feeling comes from and how past experiences might be shaping how you respond to other success today. If you've ever felt stuck in comparison mode, that's where we'll begin to unravel it. To understand how envy really works, we have to look backward a bit. Because these feelings often didn't start yesterday, they've been with us for a long time, sometimes since childhood. Let me ask you, growing up, were you ever compared to someone else? A sibling? A classmate? A neighbor's kid? Maybe you heard things like, "Look how well she's doing," or "Why can't you be more like him?" Even if those comments were well-meaning, they plant seeds. As kids, we don't always have the words to express how that makes us feel. But inside, we start keeping score. We begin to believe that love, praise, or attention only come if we're better than someone else. And that mindset doesn't just disappear when we become adults. It follows us into our friendships, our careers, even our sense of self-worth. You might not consciously remember these early comparisons, but they shape the way you respond to success today. If someone close to you is doing well, it might unconsciously remind you of those old moments of not feeling good enough. And suddenly, their joy feels like your failure, even though it has nothing to do with you. That's how envy grows, not from a lack of success, but from a fear that will never be enough. And when we don't address those old wounds, we carry them into every new situation. We scroll through social media and see curated lives, people achieving things we've always wanted, and we start to spiral. We don't see their backstory or their struggles, we only see their wins. And our inner voice goes, "See? You're still behind." But here's the truth. You're not behind. You're on a different timeline. Their story isn't your story. Their success doesn't take away from yours. But to believe that, you have to start healing that old pattern of comparison. One thing that helped me was giving myself permission to feel envy without acting on it. When I caught myself thinking, why does she get that and not me? I'd pause and say, okay, I feel jealous. That's okay. What is this really about? Sometimes the answer was, I want that too, but I'm afraid I'll never get it. Other times it was, I don't even want that. I just feel like I should. Either way, naming the feeling helped shrink its power. That's your next step. Start noticing when envy shows up. Don't judge it, just observe. It's like a signal flare. There's something deeper going on. And once you see it clearly, you're in a better position to decide how to respond. Now that we've explored where envy comes from and why it takes hold, let's talk about how to start letting it go and reconnecting with your own path. Because that's the real antidote to envy. Living with intention, not comparison. Here's something I had to learn the hard way. When you don't have a clear sense of what you want, it's easy to get swept up in what everyone else is doing. You start measuring your worth by someone else's timeline. She's married, I'm still single. He's buying a house, I'm barely paying rent. But the truth is, you might not even want the same things they do. You just think you should. That's why the first real step to healing envy is getting honest with yourself. What do you actually want out of life? Not what your parents expected. Not what your friends are doing. What makes you feel alive? If you don't have an answer right now, that's okay. Most people haven't stopped to really think about it. But now's the time. Take out a notebook and ask yourself, if no one were watching me, what kind of life would I build? What kind of work excites you? What kind of relationships feel safe and nourishing? What does success look like to you, not to Instagram? Once you start answering those questions, something shifts. You stop obsessing over what others have, and you start building something that's yours. You might find that you don't care about luxury brands, but you care deeply about freedom. Or that you're not after a big house, but you crave creativity and time. When your goals are truly your own, other people's achievements stop feeling threatening, they just feel different. That's also when setting boundaries becomes easier. If someone's posts or conversations keep triggering your insecurities, it's okay to step back, unfollow that influencer, mute that friend for a bit. Take a social media break. You don't owe anyone constant access to your energy. Protecting your mental space isn't rude, it's responsible. And while you're at it, fill that space with things that affirm your identity, not challenge it. Listen to podcasts that inspire you. Follow people who make you feel encouraged, not envious. Spend time with people who remind you of your worth, not your shortcomings. Envy grows in a vacuum. When you're disconnected from your purpose, your values, and your voice, you're more vulnerable to other people's lives filling that void. But once you get rooted in who you are and what you want, that void disappears, and envy loses its grip. At this point, you've started to see envy for what it is, a signal, not a sentence. You've dug into the past, begun protecting your space, and defined what really matters to you. Now comes the fun part, using that energy as fuel. Because envy, when handled wisely, isn't just something to eliminate, it's something you can use. Think of it as emotional GPS. When you feel jealous of someone else's success, ask yourself, what does this reveal about what I desire? You might find that envy is pointing you toward a goal you've been afraid to admit, or a version of yourself you've been too scared to pursue. Let me give you an example. I used to feel jealous of people who were confident on camera, who could speak freely, who seemed to draw in an audience so naturally. I'd tell myself things like, they're just gifted, or that's not me. But deep down, I realized I wanted that too. I wanted to create, to share, to connect. I just didn't believe I was allowed to. Once I saw that clearly, I stopped letting envy make me small. I started practicing. I filmed awkward videos. I worked on my storytelling. I put myself out there. And with every step, envy turned into motivation. Not because I wanted to be them, but because I wanted to become more of me. You can do that too. Use envy as a mirror. Ask, what is this telling me I care about? And what's one step I can take toward that today? It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's reading about a new career path, or signing up for a class, or reaching out to someone who's doing what you want to do and asking how they got started. At the same time, be patient. Growth takes time. It's not about flipping a switch, it's about planting seeds and watering them daily. And remember, someone else's progress doesn't mean you're falling behind. Life isn't linear. It's more like a garden. Everyone blooms at their own pace. So if you ever find yourself triggered again by a post, a conversation, a success story, don't suppress it. Lean in. Get curious. What does this reveal about what you still want to build or become? And how can you use that to move forward? When you stop seeing envy as something shameful and start seeing it as a teacher, you take back your power. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. And that's how real transformation begins. In the final segment, we'll talk about how to stay grounded in your path, cultivate genuine joy for others, and build a life that's truly your own. When you stop seeing envy as something shameful and start seeing it as a teacher, you take back your power. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. And that's how real transformation begins. You've recognized envy, traced it to its roots, reclaimed your goals, and even begun turning that energy into growth. So how do you stay in this space, where you feel steady in your own path and no longer threatened by someone else's success? The answer is simple, but powerful: gratitude and empathy. Gratitude grounds you. It shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have. And when you're connected to what's good in your life, even the small things, it's much harder for envy to take hold. I'm talking about the basic, beautiful stuff. Your health, your friendships, the fact that you woke up today and get to try again. Write it down. Say it out loud. Practice it daily. Empathy, on the other hand, opens your heart to others. Instead of viewing someone's win as your loss, you start to see it as a reflection of what's possible. Their joy doesn't subtract from yours. It adds to the energy of what's available in the world. When someone you care about thrives, you can choose to celebrate with them, not compare yourself to them. That choice is powerful. It builds connection instead of competition. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, you find yourself genuinely happy when others succeed. Not because you're pretending, but because you've stopped seeing life as a zero-sum game. And here's the most freeing part. You don't have to prove anything. You don't need a fancy title, a perfect relationship, or a highlight reel lifestyle to be enough. You're allowed to want more, but from a place of alignment, not lack. You're allowed to grow, but at your own pace. And you're allowed to cheer for others while still rooting for yourself. If envy shows up again, and it will, that's okay. Let it be your reminder to pause, reflect, and return to your values. Ask yourself, what am I really craving? And how can I support myself right now? These questions bring you back to your truth. And from there, you get to move forward, calmly, clearly, and confidently. So next time you catch yourself comparing or spiraling, take a deep breath. You're not behind, you're becoming. And the more you understand yourself, the easier it is to live with intention and joy. Thanks for spending this time with me. If anything here resonated, or if you're navigating envy right now and want to talk about it, drop a comment. We're all in this together, and this space is here for real connection, not perfection. Wishing you peace, purpose, and the courage to walk your own path. I'll see you in the next video.